right, greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Check, check, check. No, I only have one. Oh, there we go. Stereo. It's so weird when you don't have stereo in the headphones. Thanks for joining me today. I know it's a little bit of a time change, and I'm trying to squeeze this show in, actually, guys. I don't have a lot of time today, and I apologize. I'm going to do about 30 minutes. So if you're listening on call-in, just letting you know, we're not going to take any calls today. And seems a little ridiculous to do 30 minutes because it's hard to articulate anything in 30 minutes, but we'll try. But thanks, y'all, for showing up. And, oh, by the way, Scott Andrews, give me some coffees on Buy Me Coffee. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. I got static. All right. We don't like static. Check, check. Should be back. Thank you for letting me know. Anyways, yeah, lots happening. We're just going to cover a few things today. In Mexico, this is an interesting story. You all know this is happening. Tensions rise in the Rio Grande Basin as Mexico lags in water deliveries to the U.S. In 2020, rebellious Mexican farmers occupied a dam in parched Chihuahua state to prevent the federal government from sending its reservoir water to Texas under a 1944 treaty. With the clock ticking toward another treaty deadline, the two sides were struggling for a solution. So, not all out water wars, but definitely water tensions, right? Is it Delicias, Mexico? That's a great name. Anyways, I guess under a treaty, they are supposed to. Under a 1944 treaty, Mexico must share water from the Rio Conchos and other tributaries of the Rio Grande with the United States in 5-year cycles. It has historically relied on runoff from rainfall downstream of La Boquilla to comply with its treaty obligations rather than drawing down reservoir water. The last time the 5-year deadline was approaching in 2020, Chihuahua was suffering from a drought, and Mexico was behind schedule on its water transfers. Alert to the prospect of conflict, the federal government sent in the National Guard to protect dam infrastructure in preparation for sending water to the United States. Tensions mounted in Delicias over the summer months, and in early September, thousands of local farmers and supporters swarmed across the Boquilla Dam in protest. They forced out the National Guard, and one demonstrator was killed. The Mexican government still needed to deliver 294,703 acre-feet of water before October 24th of that year, but could no longer count on the reservoir. 3 years later, Mexico is once again behind schedule on complying with the treaty, leaving farms and cities in Texas deprived of water. The U.S. and Mexico are negotiating a new addition to the treaty known as a minute to ensure reliable water deliveries before the current 5-year cycle ends in 2025. Again, farmers and their political allies in Chihuahua argue that the water shouldn't come from reservoirs. So the issue, basically, is the drought is keeping people from having enough water, obviously. And if you're aware of what's causing the drought, or some, a likely actor in the cause, which is climate change, then you would know that the situation probably isn't going to get better or be relieved by a natural cycle, a boom and bust, if you will, of water availability. Although there have been, mega droughts in the past. Periods of time when certain areas, even the western United States or the western Americas, whatever you want to call it, where there have been mega droughts that lasted for a very long time. I think we talked about this the other day. The Baltic is leaking methane, from David Ulrich. Baltic Sea is leaking methane gas located in the Lonsort Deep. The leak is causing gas to seep up through more than 7 square miles of the seabed, roughly 18 miles off the coast of Sweden, seeping the gas into the water. Not only is the depth of the find, about 1,300 feet down, unusual, but so is the fact that the gas is bubbling nearly all the way to the surface. We know that methane gas can bubble out from the shallow coastal seabeds in the Baltic Sea. Christian Strawn, associate professor of marine geophysics at Stockholm University, said in a news release, "But I have never seen such intense bubble release before, and definitely not from such a deep area." I knew from one of my previous projects that the methane levels in the sediments in the area are higher than elsewhere in the Baltic Sea. Marcelo Ketzer, professor of environmental science at Linnaeus University, said in a news release, "But I never expected methane to bubble out into the sea in this way." More recently, some scientists have suggested that ships sinking in the Bermuda Triangle could be due to massive bubbles released from undersea methane deposits. The seafloor in the region is known to contain large pockets of gas that could be released suddenly, turning the ocean into a frothy soup that swallows ships. A similar process likely created huge seafloor craters near Norway. Though the mechanism itself makes sense, there's no evidence of any recent methane release from around the area of the Bermuda Triangle. The last time anything similar happened in the region was around 15,000 years ago, according to Geological Survey geologist Bill Dillon. He goes on to say, "We could be 16 years into a methane-fueled termination event, significant enough to end an ice age. Ice age termination typically occurs in 3 phases, which are recorded in ice cores going back 800,000 years. The initial phase is characterized by a gradual rise in methane and CO2, leading to a global warming over a few thousand years. This is followed by a sharp increase in temperatures fueled by bursts of methane, leveling off in a 3rd phase lasting several thousand years. Within the termination, which takes thousands of years, there's this abrupt phase which only takes a few decades," Nisbet said. During that abrupt phase, the methane soars up and is probably driven by tropical wetlands. Last time this happened was 15,000 years ago. Somebody says, except we're not in an ice age. Anyways, that's ongoing. All right. I'm probably going to jump off. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, YouTubers, of stuff. I'm probably going to jump off and cover a few more things on Rockfin just for the last 10 minutes or so. But we'll still be live on Twitter. You can watch the show on Twitter. We're live on Twitter, Rockfin, Colin, YouTube. Where are we going? We're going to talk about the fact that Dennis Kucinich, or Kucinich, whichever way you want to pronounce it, has left RFK Jr.'s campaign. And it could be over Israel. Because you know about RFK Jr.'s stance on that, the whole thing there. I don't know what his stance on this particular moment is. I haven't really heard him say anything about it. Anyways, let's listen to this from Sabby Sabs. It's very interesting. Again, I want to say, well, without saying too much, we'll listen to this. Or try to. Hello, hello. Where is the thing that gives me the volume? There it is.
Brianna Joy Gray tweeted this. Dennis holy smokes. Because if you have been paying attention to RFK Jr.'s campaign, something huge just happened. And I don't know how people are going to feel about it. Brianna Joy Gray tweeted this. Dennis Kucinich, who has been critical of Israel's abuses against Palestinians and of U.S. funding of Israel throughout his political career, is no longer RFK Jr.'s campaign manager. She went on to say RFK's daughter-in-law, a former CIA officer, is replacing him. I can't make this up. Dennis Kucinich leaves RFK Jr.'s presidential campaign. In a shakeup just days after announcing his independent bid, RFK Jr. replaced his campaign manager, Dennis Kucinich, with his daughter-in-law.
Interesting.
Holy smokes. Because
Hold on. Interesting. Well, again, it's very frustrating and tough because I don't know what the boundaries are on YouTube mostly. I'm never really quite sure, but and it's also frustrating. I was just listening to Richard Medhurst talking about the fact that you can't show video of what's going on, graphic video of what's going on in the Gaza Strip. Because it's graphic, right? Like, oh no, we can't show people really what's going on, or because it might just be too upsetting. Do you understand that we're drowning in respectability politics? We're drowning in safety, and we don't want anybody to get harmed in any way when nobody can have their delicate sensibilities transgressed upon because, oh my God. And it leads all the way up to, listen, I'm a fan of treating people nicely and being treated nicely and not having a world in which we have to live with violence and mayhem and right, abuse. But oftentimes these guardrails of, it's could be upsetting for people are actually excuses to, to allow this abuse to go on or to further this abuse, further other abuse, right? Kind of like when you call out politicians for, not doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing, or, you call them out for having, terrible stances on something, and they say, well, it's violence or stochastic violence or terrorism or, oh, how dare you? Oh, that's, or it's misogynist or it's, blah, blah, blah. Right. You can't call anything out because it might be, it's hurting people's sensibilities and whatnot. And, this is cover, obviously, for allowing abuses and atrocities to continue, right? You can't say, hey, it's kind of like a strange, double speaky gaslighting kind of thing that's going on. So what's happening is abuses, atrocities, violence, bloodshed. But you can't you can't show the thing that's happening, because it might upset people. But really the reason is because, people might see what's really going on, and then people might be mad about it. Here, guess what? People are already mad about it. People already know what's going on. They're already very mad about it. You can't really contain it. And you can't contain the fact that, I'm not going to get too much farther into it, but you can't contain the fact that people, we're going to ride along with something that nobody really supports. Nobody, almost nobody supports, except for, few lunatics support what's going on. And they happen to have all the power and the keys to the military industrial complex. Those are the people that support what's going on. And everybody's just going to sit around and go, oh my God, how do we stop this? Or why won't anybody stop this? Or what's going, we're just, and I don't know. I don't know where this is going to end. But we can't sit. Everybody just can't sit around and go like, "What an atrocity! What a terrible situation!" Oh, like at what point do people start standing up to this? On a real level. And again, it goes back to the. Oh well, you can't. You're not suggesting violence, are you? Or you're not suggesting some kind of No, the thing is that. Sometimes you got to stand up to things and stand up to people, and you're not going to do that by going, don't do that. Right. Again, I'm trying to walk a little line here, but it's a respectable, even in some ways, like, I love peaceful protests and I love peaceful movements, but even if you go back to the civil rights movement, it wasn't all peaceful, and you had two sides. You had a peaceful, I don't know what you want to call it, fork of the trident. You had a peaceful, what do you want to, I don't know. You had a peaceful front, and then you had a Malcolm X saying by any means necessary, right? So sorry for my lack of ability to use words to explain myself, but branch, sure, spear, front, I don't know what you want to call it. Yeah, you had a peaceful side, you had peaceful protesters, and you had, people, arming up. So, and that, there was as much fear of the violent side, the peaceful side was the side that brought recognition to the brutality of it. But generally, it's not always peaceful. So, I mean, this whole I don't condone violence. It's kind of like there's a little bit of a weird double speaky kind of, trap that people get. I don't know, and there's probably a word for this trap, or it's a dialectical trap. I don't know what you want to. I don't know what you want to call it. But people get themselves into traps, right? Like, oh, you can't ever condone violence. But like, it's kind of like, well, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I think that all the vaccines are dangerous. Really? Well, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I think that, we should probably question these things that have never been tested. So what you're saying is, and I'm just trying to prove a point here at YouTube. I'm not saying anything about anything. I'm just saying what you're saying is, well, if you shouldn't trust anything, you're kind of saying like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I'm kind of an anti-vaxxer, right? So, right. I'm not condoning violence, but I don't know. You know, you're in a dialectical trap, but you're put in there by the people that are completely violent, like funding violence all day long, and they just sit around and go like, how can we do violence way better? How can we make it much more violent on our side so that we win all the time we use violence? How do we get real super aggro, super blah violent, the most massive violence? You can't ever come up against us because we got so much violence. Are you suggesting that are you promoting violence? How dare you? Right? Those are the people. Well, I'm not promoting violence. I'm actually not promoting. I actually like peace, and I don't like violence. And you know, the people that are the ultra mayhem, mega violent people in power, like, won't stop causing all the violence. What are you going to do about that? I don't know. They're kind of daring you. They're kind of like, you're not suggesting violence, are you? Well, it's kind of, this is the dialectical trap of Hamas. Well, Hamas is the most, they're just the terrorists and the atrocities and the most violent and ever horrible people ever. And, you know, how dare they are so violent and so, cruel and nasty. We got to go get them with violence. You know, we need all the violence to go get them. It's just, it's so insane. You know? Oh, we're going to put, we're going to push you. We're going to lock you in we're going to lock you down and starve you and not give you electricity and water. And we're going to make your lives just completely miserable, which is violence, by the way. Right? Right. Abusing people is violence, right? Torturing people is violence. You know, not giving people, you could say that not giving people access to just, everyday things, life-giving, sustaining things is violence, right? We're gonna violate you and violence you all day long, and if you react with violence, oh, buddy, you're gonna get it. So let's stop all that. Let's just stop with all that, nonsense of like, right? We know who the violent people are, and when are you going to stop being violent? When are you going to stop being? And when are people going to stop these people from going just absolutely bonkers all over the planet, all the time? And suggesting that if you don't like it, that you're some kind of violent knucklehead. Okay. No, I don't think it works. I don't think it works that way. Sorry. No. Sorry. No. We're not doing it. I did show you this video already about Lloyd Austin saying we're going to provide Israel with all the things that they could possibly need. Because this is just because of the violence, right? We need to do some ultra violence because the violence, right? No. Anyways, the U.S. is preparing to send troops to Israel. It isn't the first time the U.S. has sent troops to protect an apartheid state, and I'm sure it won't be the last. I hope the world is prepared for what happens next. The empire is entering its endgame. Joe Biden, this is from Nico House, a.k.a. Joe Biden hates black people. But, so again, power concedes nothing without a demand. So when are people going to demand this end, And it looks like nobody really is buying this. Nobody's really down for this. I already said this yesterday. Like pretty much, the whole world is like, yeah, I see what you guys are doing. But how can you stop it, right? Because it's there's just manufactured consent for the whole thing. Well, they did, consider it, before I get too deep. Anyways, London, massive protests in London. UK government is threatening to crack down on pro-Palestinian activists and protesters. The masses come out in support of Gaza. This is, not a small crowd. That's a lot of people. And there's a lot of people. I would dare to say there's more people. The majority of people are not down with this. The majority of people see what's going on there. The majority of people understand who the aggressor is. The majority of people understand who's on the right side and who's on the wrong side. That majority of people understand that. The question is whether the majority is going to be able to stop the lunatic minority from just doing whatever they want in the name of, I don't know what it is it's in the name of. I don't really know. Well, yeah, Schulte, if protesting no longer works, obviously something else needs to happen, right? Some other resistance needs to happen instead of protesting. Lance, I'm not going to take any calls today, man. I apologize. I'm sorry, man. It's not geared at you. I just got to... anyways. So I'm going to end pretty soon. I'm going to jump off of YouTube. YouTubers, thank you so much for hanging out for a very short one. I got to move on with my day. Hope to see you all tomorrow. Probably an early one again tomorrow. Chance that I won't be here tomorrow, but if I do, it'll be early. Okay? Peace.